Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's day, May the 18th, 2022, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, on How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know that we are a family-friendly podcast, as we try to be. At the same time, guys, with maybe things that might be shown, especially today, that might be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. So, let's go ahead and get into it. We're actually going to knock out a few stories first before we get to our main story of this evening. I have been telling you guys when it comes to abortion, and I know it's a hot button topic. We know about the leak. We know about the leak of one of the clerk's dossiers, Alito's dossier, saying that Roe versus Wade should be overturned. We ask ourselves many a times, how do people in these situations seem to find themselves in position of power, especially those that might have some extreme conservative, even overly repressive views, that might be in positions of power to believe that they're morally superior to everybody else to impose their way of life onto others? Unfortunately, they do it the legal route, even more so that when they get to certain positions of power, they truly believe that they are fighting a good fight for the unborn children, while leaving the actual children in mostly child services, for foster homes, and orphanages to go without. But it's always amazed me so that I expect this from guys, old white men who think they should have rule over women's bodies. But I never expect, and I keep on saying this all the time, I never understand how a woman is really against abortion. It's almost like you would rather be pro-birth. I refuse to say pro-life. You're not pro-life. And not to get in a little bit of a rant about pro-life, here's the reason why you're not pro-life. For every shooting that happens, you guys are not there. For every time there's a tragedy or loss of life, you're not there. For any time there is a hate crime or racist attack, you're not there. For any time that we decide to go to war, again, you're not there. For any other cause outside of what you believe is an unborn child that needs a voice, you people tend to pop up at every Planned Parenthood and every other rally out there saying that God will never forgive you and all this stuff, like you actually know the man. That's the reason why I don't say you guys are pro-life, you are pro-birth, because once that child is born, your level of care drops tremendously. So, again, going back to the original point, I never understand that women out there, and yes, I am talking about you guys, I will never understand how you're for abortion. How are you for taking the right of another woman away to make you feel better about yourself because for some odd reason you feel morally superior? And this next clip I'm about to show proves exactly that I just wonder about the near insanity of some people, especially when they get into power.
So bans abortions when there's heartbeats and brainwaves at 8 weeks. If that gets overturned, there's an 18-week. If that gets overturned, there's a 20-week.
Missouri Republican State Rep Mary Elizabeth Coleman has been called the new face of the anti-abortion movement. She's a longtime activist. She has 6 kids. She's running for state senate, and she's pushed for a lot of legislation to limit abortion.
There are a number of provisions in the initial bill that I filed, making sure that Planned Parenthood is not able to be a Medicaid provider. Also, some enforcement provisions to make sure that people who are aiding or abetting avoiding the laws of Missouri are able to have some kind of a legal recourse against stopping that.
Some of her efforts have failed, even with Republicans' overwhelming majority in Missouri, like her bill to impose penalties for helping people get abortions outside the state, which didn't pass this year.
The bill you introduced was actually referenced in Politico this morning as sort of what the post-Roe future could look like. There would be penalties for people who went out of state to seek abortions.
Yeah, actually, that's wrong. There's penalties for people who aid or abet violating the law. In fact, women are explicitly exempted from that.
And what would aiding and abetting be?
Yeah, so right now, if a woman in Missouri is wanting to schedule an abortion, she'll call the last clinic that's open here in Missouri, and that clinic will actually schedule an abortion in Illinois. And both of the entities are owned by the same legal entity. And so that's a coordinated effort to avoid the laws of the state of Missouri.
She played a critical role in Missouri's 2019 abortion law, which includes a trigger ban, meaning if Roe falls, abortion will immediately become illegal in the state, except in case of medical emergency.
Mary Elizabeth Coleman is clearly ambitious. She's very excited to impose her beliefs through policy on the vast majority of Missourians. I don't know how she can fix her face to talk about family values or conservative values from a religious frame in a state that has so failed to provide services, adequate housing, job opportunities, food. I mean, it's outrageous.
Our freedom cannot be bought with the blood of our children.
Oh gosh, I wouldn't think of it as a professional political career. I think of myself as kind of taking my turn in a citizen legislature, but certainly I've prayed outside of Planned Parenthood. Just really a longtime advocate for protections for the unborn.
Hi, glad to see you again. Listen, when you leave, I would like to share some information with you about women's health care, other clinics that I know are safe and give quality care.
Bonnie Lee is also an anti-abortion activist who prays in front of Planned Parenthood.
I'm sorry I didn't have my mic on. This is just resources.
It's the babies' lives. They're innocent. We fight for them.
Oh, you have a good day, sir.
Lee is part of 40 Days for Life, an international anti-abortion organization which she says taught her how to approach women and convince them not to get abortions.
I wear the voice enhancer because this busy street is so loud, and if I elevate my voice, they think I'm yelling at them.
There are people in the anti-abortion community who are yellers.
Yes, and that's unfortunate. And we're not going to get anyone to come and talk with us if they're me.
One tactic she learned is to recommend crisis pregnancy centers, religious organizations that offer aid but not abortion.
Who's there to help them and say, well, we can help you with childcare. We will help you with getting housing. And if we on the sidewalk can build a relationship to where they'll come over and accept maybe some assistance, we're helping people. And yes, that helps the baby.
Yes, that you protect them.
No matter what happens with this Roe v. Wade decision, our work isn't finished. We still need to be there because women will continue to find themselves in an unexpected pregnancy. And so what better way to help them than to be at a place where they are going, thinking their only choice is abortion. You said that women tend to say the reason they want an abortion is because they can't take care of the baby, they can't afford the baby. Does that ever make you wonder if there's something much broader that's wrong with society on a much bigger scale than just abortion? Like, why is it so expensive to have a child? Well, I think a lot of times when a woman does find herself in an unexpected pregnancy, a lot of times she's not married. And a lot of times she's getting a lot of coercion from the boyfriend to abort. Well, I just mean like the services you offer, like what if all women could get medical care for their infants, you know, not just those who were directed away from Planned Parenthood. Wouldn't that be nice?
Ultimately, the most successful factor for the anti-abortion movement has been that there were people who bought the false premise that these anti-abortion actors were a bunch of really concerned grannies who were out in front of clinics, as opposed to a coordinated, well-funded political operation that was drafting legislation through a long game legal lens.
I just think that abortion is the greatest evil that we have right now in our country. The idea that the value of someone's life would be different based on how old they are is really horrifying to me. Okay, I'm so sorry. I have to gavel in or I'm going to miss.
Right, thank you.
Ellie Reeve, CNN.
That's saying a lot, ain't it? That's saying a lot. I love how she said, well, we have to fight against the greatest evil. The greatest evil is abortion right now. No. There's a lot of other things out there, but abortion ain't on that top 10. But it goes to show you. It goes to show you that these people have found a way legally, and if there's enough of them, especially in heavily conservative states, that you will find them there who will have no problem pushing stuff through. And I love the mentality. And correct me if I'm wrong. I always say this to anybody else who is pro-birth. Please tell me where I'm wrong in you guys' way of thinking, because every time I've said this, I've always asked this question. If you are pro-life, so you are completely okay with every woman out there having to live their life the way you live your life, you're okay with telling every woman out there how to do that. Silence. I always get, well, I'm not saying that. Yes, you are. Because if a woman, I said this before, a woman's body is honestly her own fucking business. It is. I have said that many times. I will defend a woman's right to her body because no one will tell a man what to do with his body. So why should I tell? So why should we be telling women what to do with their bodies? That is the most simple concept ever, outside of chicken versus the egg. Simple concept. And yet, so many people say, "Well, no, because no one's thinking about the baby." Oh, so okay. And I hear that too. Well, no one thinks about the baby. I said, yeah, everybody thinks about it. Y'all guys think about the baby, but what do you do after they're born? Oh, well, we have services. What kind of services? Do you have housing? Do you have childcare? Do you have post? Do you have prenatal? Do you have natal? Do you have care for the child as far as post birth, help for the mother, postpartum depression, things of that nature? Do you have assistance for all those things? Ah, we have Jesus. That's again, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. If they felt so strongly about pro birth, if they felt so strongly about them being pro birth as they are, you pro life people, if you feel that strongly, why are you not advocating for more services for women? Because as they said, it costs an extreme amount of money to have a child. Hospital services, I mean, ask any mother who has had a child born in the United States. Ask them how much their hospital bill was when they had to give birth to their child, insurance included. And I'll tell you right now, my mom had 6 of them. Can you imagine that hospital bill? And she had wonderful insurance. Still, those $5,000 and $7,000 and $8,000 medical bill, now those bills still came to the house. 5, 7, 8,000, and that's post insurance. And that was back in the 80s. So again, I mean 80s and 90s, because like I said, 6 children. But the point I'm making is we are now in 2022. Healthcare is a for-profit system, and that is the problem. But you pro-birth / pro-life people don't want to acknowledge that. Healthcare costs are too extravagant. Right now, everything's going up by your paycheck. For you to have a child right now is financial. It's gonna be financial. It costs a lot to raise a child. From the time they're born to the time they are going to college or whatever they decide to do next. It costs a lot to raise a child. And for a lot of us out there, people, why are people stop having children? Because right now they're financially expensive. And depending on people's livelihoods, they may not be able to maintain those children. So why be so cruel to have children and bring them up in an area to where you may or may not be able to care for them and hinder the danger and hinder the life of the child? I always said it best. A woman who decides to have an abortion is probably the most responsible thing she can do. When she realizes that she will not be able to care for this child, then I can understand. It's her body. She's putting her body at risk to carry this child. It's her choice. Again, a simple concept. But you get those out there that are morally superior who can't offer services, who aren't squawking at the government as to why it costs so much to have a child in the U.S. Why are actual post services and care almost damn near disappearing? But you want to sit there and say, "Well, we have Jesus." That's what you say. It is amazing. It frustrates me so because I want to have an honest conversation, but I have yet to find a pro-birth, pro-life person who is ready to have an honest conversation. Because 9 times out of 10, they're really not. They will sit there and say, God doesn't like abortion. Well, how do you know that? Well, I read the Bible. Do you really want to read the part of the Bible where incest, rape, slavery, and overall God just punishing people, and that's just in the first 3 chapters? But you want to sit there and defend your point. You are entitled to have your point. We have to reason about freedom of speech, but you are not absolved from your stupidity. But again, that is the fight that we're looking forward to. As like I said, the decision about Roe versus Wade should be coming next month in June. So we shall see what happens. But another reason why a lot of women are not having children right now, because again, we are facing a baby formula shortage as well.
Tonight, growing outrage among parents as the formula shortage drags on.
I'm actually terrified. I don't know how I'm going to feed him.
The FDA facing new calls for accountability, one day after it struck an agreement with Abbott Nutrition to reopen its Michigan formula facility within 2 weeks. House Democrats are proposing $28 million in emergency funding for the FDA to restore formula supply and increase FDA staff for inspections.
Did the FDA fail parents?
Yes, the FDA fell down on their job in terms of protecting babies and parents. And what we try to do with this legislation is to provide infrastructure and to provide resources and funding.
The agreement requires Abbott Nutrition to hire an independent inspector to evaluate the plant and install automatic sampling technology, which experts expect will be completed soon. In February, Abbott issued a voluntary recall and closed the plant after reports of serious bacterial infections in 4 infants, including 2 deaths. Abbott has said there's no evidence to link its formulas to the illnesses. But with at least 8 weeks until Abbott's formula could hit shelves, the FDA announced increased flexibilities to import formula from Australia, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom, which the agency says have similar safety inspections to the U.S. The FDA telling NBC News products that can quickly and confidently meet our standards could hit U.S. stores in a matter of weeks. But parents like Candace Hendricks, who spends every day on a quest for formula to feed her 3-month-old Kaysen, who has a dairy allergy, they're concerned.
That would be one of the last options I would have. I would definitely try it if it's something that he could tolerate.
For now, Hendricks is relying solely on formula samples from her pediatrician's office.
My worst fear is that when I call to schedule a pickup for samples, that they will say, sorry, that they don't have any more.
Jolene Kent, NBC News.
And all I can sit there and say is, where are the pro-birth, pro-life people now? They're not crying about this, because this is why I sit there and I say this the entire time. Those pro-life / pro-birth people are full of shit. They're not protesting this. Even more so that we, again, with Abbott, keep in mind, there's a reason why there is a shortage of baby formula. Because Abbott, along with 3 other developers, are the only ones in the U.S. that produce baby foods and formulas for infants, especially of special dietary needs. You have, aside from Abbott, who's a major one, you have 3 other ones. And Abbott is the major producer because it owns all of them. At the same time, Abbott has had multiple FDA inspections, which I still find interesting that they have been told to upgrade their factories, which they haven't done as of yet. But now, with $28 million going into the FDA for pushing inspections, things of that nature, Abbott is saying that they can finally get back on track, which means that they will have to basically update their factories. Again, who do we have to blame for baby food shortages? Unregulated capitalism. This is what happens when you have one major provider of a source inside of a country, and when that major provider goes down, that, again, the sources dry up. Even more so, that very same Abbott group did lobby within Congress to make sure that, yes, the other part that you heard, as far as them importing other formulas and baby foods from New Zealand, Australia, and the United Kingdom, I wonder why. Why was that not made now? Because, oh, right, there's a regulation in place that says that we cannot import said goods from other countries because of not meeting U.S. safety standards. You see what I'm getting at here? It's just like the drug market. The drug market and the healthcare system is very similar. There are many other drug markets besides the U.S. Mexico, Canada, South America, overseas in the United Kingdom, Europe, even Australia. But again, companies out there, healthcare companies like Cigna, like Aetna, and many others out there have made sure to lock down the drug market to where they can only deal within the U.S., basically eliminating competition to fatten their pockets. Unregulated capitalism is literally the foundation of the mess that we're in right now, especially with baby formula, especially with just making sure that our infants and children are able to get the nutritional needs met. But again, where I don't see aside from the fact that I can go after our Congress for allowing this to happen, aside we can sit there and blame our failing healthcare system, aside from the simple fact of the matter that we can blame so many things, you would think the one group who would be more responsible about yelling that this is not right would be the pro-life / pro-birth people. And again, they're silent. But who am I to judge, I guess, because, hey, I'm just calling a spade a spade. But moving right along, guys, just two more stories before we get to our main story, because the main story will take up a lot of this podcast. I try not to show a lot of Fox News. I try not to. Reason being because for all those that know, Fox News is not a real news station. It has been said many a times in legal battles when Fox was facing many defamations and lawsuits that they sat there and said that we are not an actual news station. We do not have award-winning journalists on any of our shows. We are simply a conservative entertainment platform, and they're not even doing that good of entertainment. That being said, however, there are some stories that, again, I get called out about. Well, all you show is left media, left-wing media stuff, and you don't show any conservative. Do you want to know why I don't show conservative stuff? I'll give you a prime example, and trust me, a prime example.
Melissa Riley saw the radical curriculum at her 13-year-old son's middle school in Virginia. Melissa's son is biracial, but he'd never talked about his race or racial issues until the school forced it on him. Melissa is now suing his school, claiming they brainwashed her son. Melissa Riley joins me now, along with her attorney, Ryan Bangert, Alliance Defending Freedom Senior Counsel. All right, so Melissa, your son is, the father's black, you're white, and he'd never mentioned issues with race before, you're saying? What exactly changed?
Right, we didn't have issues before. He's in 8th grade. They introduced this critical program, and now he's having racial issues that was not there before.
What kind of racial issues is he having?
Well, he's seen himself just as a black man. He's seen things that don't go his way as racism, and he's finding safety in numbers now.
So when you're saying he gets a bad grade at school, he blames racism, or a girl rejects him on a date, racism, are those the kind of things you're seeing?
Yes, I ask him to clean the house, racism, yes.
You're kidding, right? Or are you serious?
No, I'm serious. They have totally changed his perspective. They have put him in a box.
So you're saying he doesn't want to do his chores because that's racist?
He's using it as an excuse because they've told him that that's how people see him, is as a black man that the world is against, and shows it as a negative now.
All right, so counselor, you're going to litigate this because obviously this is brainwashing and it's having a deleterious effect on this young man's brain. Is the school fighting back? What are they saying? Oh, we don't teach this, we don't do this?
Well, they certainly are fighting back, and they don't deny what they're teaching. They just simply think it's fine. They think it's okay, but it's not okay. It's never okay. It's never right for a school to teach kids that they're determined entirely by their race. It's never okay for a school to tell kids that bigotry should be fought with bigotry and racism should be fought by doubling down on racism. Those things are not okay. They're violations of students' civil rights.
Melissa, have you seen the materials that your son is studying that infected his brain?
Yes.
And what do they
I've
say?
talked to the school as well.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yes. So when this program was put into motion, I talked to the school, and they told me that he could be a black spokesperson for the black community. When I told him I didn't think that that would be appropriate, they told me that if he was uncomfortable with the conversations, he and other children of color could go to a safe place during these conversations, and that's segregation.
Oh, boy. And your son's father, who's African-American, how does he feel about all this?
I'm a single mom.
Okay.
So I'm teaching him everything. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's tough, and we salute you for that. And we hope everything works out and your son gets out of this phase and he can learn about writing and arithmetic instead of critical race theory. I think that would be better for him and better for everybody. Thank you.
Okay. That made my head hurt. That made my head hurt. Again, why I don't cover conservative media? That. There's no other way. Let me tell you something. If it was, there is, now don't get me wrong, there probably is some conservative media out there that does provide an alternate view through reasonable, logical, factual progression. I have yet to find it. I have yet to find it. And please feel free to point out some areas, but let me just go ahead and knock you out. I'm gonna just go ahead and just stop you now if these are your examples. Daily Beast, The Blaze, Newsmax, the Daily Mail, anything Ben Shapiro is a part of, anything Candace Owens is a part of, Jesse Peterson is a part of, and I'm pretty sure I'm missing. Oh, Bill O'Reilly podcast. You can miss me with that one. Anything related to Sean Hannity outside of Fox, Laura Ingraham. I think I've covered 10 things right there. So if you're within those top 10, if your news selections are within those top 10 right there, just don't suggest it. Just don't. Because let me get this straight. You have a biracial son who is, I guess now decided, because he's in those teen years, has decided that he's going to be ruly rebellious, and apparently decides that because of he's awoken to his blackness, that he will not listen to his white mom. Ma'am, that's not CRT. You have a teenager. Any parent who has a teenager will tell you a teenager will drive you up the wall. It may be mad if you thinking some homicidal tendencies. But certainly, again, CRT is not being taught anywhere. The examples that they gave from Florida are literally weak sauce. There is no such thing as CRT implication. There's no such thing as CRT guidance. The thing about it is, if CRT was really there, it has been there since the late 70s, because public education hasn't changed since then. That being said, madam, the fact that you literally went on Fox News and sit there and say that CRT exists, but you can't find one example to provide to a fake journalist such as Jesse Waters there, again, tells me a lot. That, simply put, you are exactly what conservative media looks for. Someone that sits there and says CRT is real, somebody who can sit there and be marketable, and of course, somebody who is white. The caucasity is running wild. Because trust me, the last time conservative media trusted a black person, they kicked her out. Candace Owens is still trying to make her way back in. But this is the point I'm making. CRT is not being taught anywhere. And as we get into our main story, I'm honestly wishing that it did get taught everywhere. But again, I will cover that story when we get to that point. But lady, that just sounds like a lot of clout chasing just to be on television, especially when it said, well, how's his father who's African American? I'm a single mom. Okay, that doesn't really mean shit, but where is the father? Because the fact you say you're a single mom pretty much tells me that either you disagree with him, or you are one of those, I was just in the club on a random Tuesday and here I am pregnant. Not judging, just saying I've heard that story before. But moving right along, guys, I did want to cover this story as well. Our last story before we get to the heart of the matter, the main story for tonight. President Biden is going to meet with Democratic senators on student loan debt. It has been said that as of this afternoon, he is going to discuss the issue of student loan debt with Senator Leader Chuck Schumer, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock, and Senator Elizabeth Warren. Which again, let's meet this Wednesday afternoon. Now, for all you guys that do remember, Biden did sit there and say, again, when he was shooting himself in the foot, that he is not, that the entire canceling student debt, canceling our total student debt was completely off the table. I am considering some sort of reduction. We've heard the numbers that got thrown around: 10,000, 25,000, 50,000, 75,000. And even to an extent, some people's student loan debt did actually get forgiven or resolved. Those that were misguided by planned for profit nonprofit colleges, those that are under certain public service forgiveness loans on those, and some various other ones, disabled, handicap, also got theirs resolved. But there's still well over 20 million Americans that still have student loan debt that is keeping them away from, moving up their credit profiles, buying a house, buying a car, things of that nature. They just seem to be stuck because anybody that knows that's been a part of this game really have credit that, the more debt, the more debt and lower your score is, the more that you pay. And right now, in this day and age with our economy, nobody cannot afford to pay more than the pennies they already have. That being said, I also sat there and told Biden, I told Biden specifically, I sat there and said on my previous podcast that by saying you're not going to do nothing about student debt, you are breaking one of the campaign promises that you made. But then again, like I said, we are in election year, 4 months away from the midterms. Democrats need a win. They need some wins. I mean, yes, they did do a lot of historical things. I mean, they did get Ketanji Brown Jackson elected to the Supreme Court. They did get Lisa Cook elected to the Federal Board of Governors. But that's still 2 wins in what was supposed to be a year of Democrats moving things through a slim majority and having, people like Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema basically go with the works, which again, Democrats are going to have a hard time in West Virginia anyway, since Joe Manchin did vote against women's rights. So again, good luck in West Virginia. That being said, it's going to be real difficult for Biden to come forward unless he either comes forward and says we are going to go ahead and cancel student debt entirely, which again would mean a landslide victory in making sure that that the Democrats increase their consumer majority in Congress. That or decriminalize marijuana. But let's be honest, I don't know why at this point we are in 2022 and we're still talking about decriminalizing marijuana. It should have been done decades ago. But unless Biden does one of those 2 things, I do not see November going in their favor. Just because the Republicans have done nothing. They have said no. They have been courting Trump, who is somehow still not in jail yet. And at the same time, with a lot of primaries that are happening in certain states, there are Trump-backed people that are winning their primaries. Again, you should be a little concerned, and Democrats should be moving forward, but they're going to have a harder time than Republicans convincing idiots to vote for them versus Democrats who are going to have a harder time going back to women and minorities with a whole list of unchecked promises, asking them to trust them again. Now, I know for a lot of y'all people are going to sit there, well, that's all the choices we have. No. I say this all the time. If you don't like the choices that are in front of you, start pushing candidates who represent your views. Yes, that's what you have to do. I mean, that's what we have to do. When you don't have money behind a candidate, you do have to push them. If this candidate represents you, push them forward. If this candidate, again, word of mouth, letting people know, really getting their name out there. Because here's the thing, if you are not doing everything you can as a concerned voter and citizen to push forward candidates that you believe have your interest at heart, if you're not doing that, you have no right to complain about the choices that you have, because other folks will figure that out and push their candidates forward. You should be doing the same. Otherwise, don't complain. But again, Democrats are going to have a harder time unless Joe Biden does one of 2 things. As much as I want to hope for clearing out our complete student loan debt, we should be able to do so, because you know why? We do have the money, considering the fact that, they just now authorized a $48 billion package to Ukraine. So if I was going to say anything currently to the president right now, I would sit there and say, treat us the same way you treat Ukraine. That's all I'm saying. But we're going to go ahead and get to our main story, guys, because again, it is a lot. It would be remiss of us not to talk about what happened in Buffalo, just because it has so many implications, not only on the fact of gun control and gun laws being heated up again, but the simple fact of the matter is that that America does have a racial problem, and it definitely has a domestic terrorist problem. Although for the most part, most domestic terrorists are white supremacists.
Based on the racist massacre in Buffalo. President Biden is heading there to meet with the families of the victims as officials release new details about the lives lost. And this morning, we're getting an exclusive look at the moment the shooter was arrested and the warning signs that were missed. Stephanie Ramos starts us off from Buffalo. Good morning, Stephanie.
George, good morning. President Biden and the First Lady will be here in Buffalo this morning, paying their respects here at the Tops Supermarket and also meeting with the families of the victims. The president is expected to call for federal hate crime legislation so that what happened here never happens again. This morning, chilling new details on how the gunman behind the deadly mass shooting at a Buffalo, New York supermarket plotted his racist rampage.
The individual was here a few months ago, back in early March.
Authorities now confirming 18-year-old Peyton Gendron visited Tops Supermarket 2 months before he shot and killed 10 people in what the FBI calls a racially motivated attack. ABC News obtaining a 589-page document containing the suspect's alleged posts on the site Discord. Authorities say it appears to show how the gunman carefully planned out the massacre, visiting the supermarket on March 8th, where he was questioned by a security guard. The document also included sketches of the supermarket, outlining different aisles he could navigate quickly. The shooter allegedly describing the store as his first location, listing other possible locations to attack nearby. Police say the shooter visited the store again the day before his deadly assault to conduct reconnaissance, then came back Saturday and opened fire.
Yeah.
This exclusive video capturing the shock and terror in the shooting's aftermath as the gunman was arrested.
Oh my God, he shot so many people in there.
Julie Harwell, seen here falling to the ground, inconsolable. Her partner and 8-year-old daughter were inside. Overnight, her partner telling ABC News he and their daughter London had separated from Julie because they wanted to buy ingredients for a surprise birthday cake.
I took my daughter so she can pick out what cake that we were going to bake for her mother's birthday, try to surprise her.
And then what did you hear?
Well, first you hear the gunshot. I see all the people running. So I just grabbed my daughter, ran in the back.
Lamont and London hiding in a cooler as they recounted to our affiliate WKBW.
I was scared for my mom. I didn't know where she was. I thought she was gone.
They were separated for 20 minutes, which felt like an eternity.
That was the longest wait I ever had in my life.
While they made it out alive, the gunman killing 10 people. Celestine Cheney, Roberta Drury, Andre McNeil, Catherine Massey, Marcus Morrison, Hayward Patterson, Aaron Salter Jr., Geraldine Talley, Ruth Whitfield, and Pearl Young. Hayward Patterson had just been at his church's soup kitchen before he left for the supermarket.
He loved the community just as much as he loved the church. And so you would see him anywhere he was encouraging people, to be the best that they can be.
Now, a demand for answers. Authorities revealing the shooter was investigated last spring after writing a paper shortly before graduation that referenced committing murder-suicide. The school calling state police, but no charges were filed.
The individual was brought in for a mental health evaluation. He was evaluated and then he was released.
Overnight, the suspect's friend, Matthew Casado, telling ABC News the gunman dropped off ammo boxes at his house the day before the shooting, allegedly unannounced. The friend's family calling authorities to have that picked up. And George, this is just one piece of evidence investigators are looking into.
Again, it's a lot. It's a lot. Even more so that, there are going to be a lot of people who are going to be scarred, emotionally scarred from that event. But at the same time, there is a lot of questions need to be answered. And again, the first thing I'm gonna sit there and say is, who evaluated this nut? Who evaluated this nut and say he was fine? First and foremost, if you write a letter talking about murder suicide, brother, you on a watch list until you're in the ground. That's the way I would feel. If you write something talking about murder suicide, you're on a watch list. You are prohibited from buying any firearms. Which again, he was 18 years old. 18 years old, full tactical body armor. Was able to purchase 3 guns and ammo. All because somebody dropped the ball on his mental health. Somebody really dropped the ball, not just in the mental health examination, because again, if it was me and I was like, wait a minute, he wrote a letter about murder-suicide, why is he not being watched? He should definitely be watched. Even more so, the fact that he was casing out a joint. And I'm just thinking to myself, I understand law enforcement can only do so much. I understand that, but then again, it comes that whole story of gun laws again, and I knew that was. And it's like, aside from the fact that again, the only victims were Black people, suggests so much more The fact that, yes, there is an Instagram video. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get it in time. I apologize. Where there is an Instagram video where the guy is live streaming. He's live streaming from his point of view. Comes up on a white person and he's like, "Oh, sorry." He apologizes to the white person. He's got his AR style rifle pointed at. He doesn't kill the white person, but he proceeds to kill 10 black people, and again, was taken into custody without dying. There's something very wrong about all of that. Not the fact of the matter that man was clearly disturbed, was still able to obtain firearms, clearly disturbed, and was still not monitored, armed to the teeth, shot 10 people, still brought in safely by police. When all of us know, the simple fact of the matter is, we have seen black people who have had guns drawn on them, whose lives were taken for next to nothing. But as you heard in the story, President Biden and the First Lady did go to Buffalo to mourn and to try to give comfort. And this is what he said in his speech there.
Not win, I promise you.
Today, President Biden and the First Lady near the Tops grocery store at the memorial site for 10 people killed in a hate-fueled shooting rampage as they shopped on a Saturday afternoon.
White supremacy is a poison, and it's been allowed to fester and grow right in front of our eyes.
President Biden denouncing hate and again pushing for stricter gun control.
We can keep assault weapons off our streets. We've done it before.
And tonight, we're learning more about the 18-year-old suspect's months-long preparation for his twisted attack. NBC News has reviewed a series of online rants on the chat forum Discord, which appear to be written by the suspect, where he describes his reconnaissance mission at the store back in March, detailing how he mapped out the store's aisles, was confronted by a store security guard for repeatedly entering the store, and considered a school and churches as other possible targets he thought would have high percentages of black people.
You think you've seen the suspect before?
No, I know I saw him. He was in my store.
Rose Wasaki is a produce manager at Tops.
He had said to me, "You're out of place here. You look like you belong out in the suburbs."
On the day of the shooting spree, she took cover in a conference room.
I could hear that then it was just like massive gunshots, just massive, and you could hear them getting closer and closer and closer.
While nearby, 8-year-old London Thomas hid behind her dad as the suspect opened fire.
We all ran to the back, like at the place where the milk freezes at, and then he was shooting at the milk, and then the milk was like linking through the middle.
The staggering loss here is heartbreaking. Roberta Drury, Marcus Morrison, Andre McNeil, Aaron Salter, Celestine Cheney, Hayward Patterson, Catherine Massey, Pearl Young, Ruth Whitfield, and Geraldine Talley. Talley's sister describing her final moments shopping with her fiance.
He said bullets were actually flying by his head. And I do believe at that time, my sister was already shot.
Yeah, Emily, now a New York prosecutor is weighing in on how authorities responded following the suspect's threat at his high school last year.
Lester, that.
Okay, so I just cut off right there because they're basically repeating themselves. So again, I just yes, it's white supremacy. White supremacy is a poison. Okay, I mean, white supremacy is more like, it's more like cancer. I won't say it's poison. It's more like cancer. It's spread. I mean, FBI reports that white supremacists have infiltrated almost every part of government and law enforcement since the 1940s. White supremacy has basically been the backbone of conservative media for like the last 50, 60 years. White supremacy has literally had so many names. Aryan Brotherhood, KKK, nationalism. And they've had very different figureheads that have come forward and tried to explain that no, it's not racism. We're just dedicated patriots. And again, this is the problem what I'm saying. That's not the tip of the iceberg. The tip of the iceberg, aside from President Biden saying it's a poison and that he's pushing gun laws, we need gun reform. This is going to be the problem. This is how I knew this was going to be a problem ever since Sandy Hook. Because if little children being killed did not change the way we handle gun laws in this country, then I don't see a lot of people coming forward and saying we need to change the way we do our gun laws because one 18-year-old who believed that black people need to be wiped out is going to change the way we do gun laws. If anything, there's going to be a lot more people considering carrying. I said, and this is the thing about what happens with shootings. What happens with shootings is it's this usual cycle. A shooting happens, if it's racial related, which means that more of a certain race were killed than others, that certain race is going to start arming up, which means that there's going to be talk of gun laws. There may be a possible bill that's going to be there's going to be a possible bill that's going to be probably written up and brought into Congress. But what's going to happen on the outside? Gun sales are going to go up. Ammo sales are going to go up. The ones that win out of, and I hate to say this, but the ones that do win out of these shootings are gun and ammo manufacturers because it's Christmas for them. People are scared. People are fearful. They're going to start concealed carrying. Reason being because said situation. Don't be caught. I'd rather be caught with one than without one. And I can't blame those people. I'm a gun owner myself. I cannot blame those people because everybody just wants to live in peace. Everybody wants to, walk in peace or shop in peace or just go somewhere and be able to enjoy themselves without having to worry about a nut job with a firearm who decides that because you're black, they're better than you, that they have to end you. I get that. I understand the reason why. That's why I don't argue. I can't argue anymore. With folks that's like, I'd rather have it on me because I don't want that to happen to me. And you know what I say? I don't blame you because it's too frequent now. It's becoming too normalized. And with gun laws, if you've seen in my previous podcast, I've said the way we should be handling our gun laws. The problem is there's going to be so many people out there that are so rigid about not changing anything that they rather just bend their heads in the status quo because they said the status quo works. It doesn't work. The status quo does not work. And that's just the gun laws. Now, again, Biden did give his responses on this. Some Democrats did take to Twitter to dispel their belief, their anger, their rage, and their condolences to those lost at Buffalo store. But you have to wonder, what's the Republican response? I'm going to be honest, you really shouldn't be surprised.
This policy is called the Great Replacement, the replacement of legacy Americans with more obedient people from faraway countries. They brag about it all the time, but if you dare to say it's happening, they will scream at you with maximum hysteria.
This administration wants complete open borders, and you have to ask yourself why. Is it really they want to remake the demographics of America to ensure that they stay in power forever? Is that what's happening here?
This is their ideal model, is to get rid of the rest of us because we believe in George Washington or we believe in the Constitution.
Fox News and Senator Johnson declined our request for comment on this. On his show, Tucker Carlson defended his claims and his right to express his opinions. Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich, who you just saw there, called the white supremacist idea of replacement theory nuts. But he did add this: there is a legitimate cultural, not racial, fight to be had about the degree to which the left seeks to erode American culture and the historic model of assimilation by allowing our legal immigration system to be totally overwhelmed. Think about that for just a second. Joining us.
Yeah, think about that for just a second. Now, what they're referring to is the fact that that in his manifesto, because keep in mind, they did talk about how the white supremacist domestic terrorists had a manifesto. He referred to the replacement theory, the Great Replacement Theory. Now, for all those that don't know what it is, the Great Replacement Theory is actually something that came out of France, where basically they said that there is a fear that the white race could be replaced by other ethnic groups. You may have heard something similar to that, but that's exactly what a lot of people believe that is. Even more so that you just heard several prominent Republicans sit there and say, well, that's the Democratic agenda, is because they're trying to get more immigrants in here to change the vote. Great Replacement Theory. Because they feel like if there's more of them than us, they can overrule us. And I've always said it best. A white, for a lot of people, they said a white man's fear is the fact that they no longer, or a white man's fear, they fear that they are no longer on top of the food chain. For those that think that way, not all of them think that, not all of them think that way. But for a lot of them, when they're no longer on top of the food chain, they start feeling like panicked or feel like they have to lash out. Even more so, Tucker Carlson, douchebag Carlson, was one of those figures.
Quote, I learned that the white race is dying out, that blacks are disproportionately killing whites. We are doomed by high rates of immigration, he says, again there at the end of that quote. And he later writes, quote, my race was doomed, and it was there that I started to think about committing an attack, end quote. His words. Now, as a matter of reporting or law, there is not a stipulation here drawing a causal link between this act and this violence and any individual person's rhetoric. Indeed, this kind of investigation can be quite complex and take a long time when you go beyond what happened that day to what may or may not have caused it, who is linked to it, or in legal terms, if there's any other direct actors, whether there was some sort of attempted conspiracy. That is not what we are asserting here, and I say that in all deliberate care. At the same time, we note there are ways that this very screed from this very alleged killer echo exactly what has been pushed out here across parts of the European and American right wing and across parts of Fox News and Tucker Carlson's show.
How precisely is diversity our strength? Since you've made this our new national motto, please be specific as you explain it. Can you think, for example, of other institutions such as, I don't know, marriage or military units in which the less people have in common, cohesive they are? Do you get along better with your neighbors or your coworkers if you can't understand each other or share no common values?
There is that overlap. As for Fox's position on this, they are not directly commenting. They did tell the Washington Post that there are examples they pointed to where Tucker Carlson has spoken out against violence. And because he has a platform, he may speak out on it, of course, this week. Now, this weekend, another person has drawn on this conspiracy theory and these words, this time committing a mass murder. But it's not the first time that these ideas, which many of which are constitutionally protected speech, you can say these things. So it's not the first time that they've moved towards actions that are not protected because they involve menacing or violence. In 2017, we saw the neo-Nazis directly quoting this same thing, replacement theory, as they marched in Charlottesville.
Jews will not replace us! Jews will not replace us!
You also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
You will not replace us! You will not replace us! You will not replace us!
You will not replace us. Jews will not replace us. Part of the writings of this conspiracy theory have the idea that in America or these Western states, Jews will help foreign minorities, quote unquote, take over. And Europe doesn't have a great record on these issues if you look at the far right and the hate speech and what hate speech can lead to.
He's exactly right. Again, and that's just part. That right there is part of it. It is part of it to where, to a certain extent, to where there has to be, again, with douchebag Tucker Carlson, it's my opinion. It's just my opinion. I have a right to say my opinion. Yes, just like I have a right to do this podcast and call you a douchebag and everybody at Fox News is a piece of shit. I can say that, but I'm not absolved from the consequences of my words that I say. In the same sense that, do you think in some ways that Tucker Carlson and everybody else at Fox News should be liable for the environment that they produce? Absolutely. They should. Because again, Osama bin Laden didn't fly planes in the 9/11. For the simple fact of the matter is, Charles Manson never killed anybody. He had followers, but he influenced them. Shouldn't be surprised at some point to where, again, I wouldn't be surprised if you do watch Fox News that Tucker Carlson will find some way to sit there and say that the media is out to get him. The funny part is, Bill O'Reilly said the same thing, and so did Rush Limbaugh, and where are they now? But again, I can't say that all GOP have done this. Actually, there's one representative who either may be on his way out or just feels like he's very solidified his position, actually called out his own people.
Had a chance to talk to you since the massacre in Buffalo. There are 10 people killed because they were shopping in black. And the shooter, it seems, was motivated by white replacement theory, this crazy offensive notion that white people in this country are under threat from minorities, of replacing them. You've called on your own House leadership to say more about this. What are you asking for specifically? How responsible do you feel that some leaders are for creating sort of this environment?
Well, what I'm asking for is just spit out the cancer. You know, there was a day, Steve King used to be a member of Congress from Iowa, and he made some racist comments, and we basically kicked him off his committees. Today, you know, people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, you know, people like Matt Gaetz, Mo Brooks, the folks you think about, they are almost leading. Well, I would argue that they are leading the Republican caucus. And so Kevin McCarthy, Elise Stefanik, instead of leading, as you know, their title, leadership, should suggest they do, they basically are tolerating this all in the name of hopefully I become speaker someday. And what happens, John, is did they pull the trigger? No. You know, did they call this guy up and tell him to do it? Of course not. But when we as a party or a movement, or people like, frankly, Tucker Carlson, you know, throw out these theories, or just fish in the waters of white replacement theory, or echo some of those kind of fear-based things, you can't be surprised when some people take that to the level of going and massacring people. You just can't. You can't fundraise, you can't feed, you can't live on fear, because eventually you're going to create fearful people, and fearful people can do really bad things. And I think that's what we saw in Buffalo.
And again, he's right. He is right in so many ways. I'm just surprised a GOP person said it. I give it to him. I don't know how long he's going to be representative in Illinois, but hey, you called it. Not to say that a broken clock is not right twice a day, but hey, he did call it that there are cancerous things out there, to where, simply put, that unless you call it out, stuff is that is going to happen with your Marjorie Taylor Greenes, your Matt Gaetz, your Tucker Carlsons, your Laura Ingrams, your Sean Hannitys, your Candace Owens, your Ben Shapiro's, your Jesse Petersons. You have your Glenn Becks. You have multitudes. I would say Alex Jones, but he's too busy dodging lawsuits right now. Your Donald Trumps especially. But the reason why I say all this, because until you caught the cancer, we basically, and I hate to say this, there is historical precedence behind this. Even more so to where this is not the first time that we've seen a white shooter get treated better than the victims that he killed.
On August 23, 2020, Jacob Blake was shot multiple times in the back by a police officer in Kenosha, Wisconsin, after officers responded to a call about a domestic dispute, according to the Wisconsin Department of Justice. Within hours, protests began in the city. On the night of August 25, 2020, protesters and groups of armed men who said they were there to protect businesses gathered in Kenosha. Among the armed men was then 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse.
We don't have non-lethal.
Using multiple videos obtained and verified by ABC News, as well as the criminal complaint against Rittenhouse filed on August 27th, we put together a detailed timeline of the shootings that happened in downtown Kenosha on August 25th, 2020, 2 days after Jacob Blake was shot by the police. This report contains graphic, disturbing images. At 10:04 p.m., a video shows a group of armed men protecting a car shop at the corner of 59th and Sheridan. One young man in a green t-shirt and backwards baseball cap says, A little over an hour later, protesters gathered at an Ultimate gas station at 60th and Sheridan. We see a man who appears to be Joseph Rosenbaum, one of the shooting victims, clash with armed men, also gathered. Back at the car shop at 59th and Sheridan, the same young man who appears to be Kyle Rittenhouse can be seen asking law enforcement for water. And the officers can be heard speaking to the group.
We appreciate you guys, we really do.
At 11:48 p.m., gunshots ring out.
Those are gunshots down there.
First 4 bursts,
Uh-oh.
then 3. A man who police identified as Rittenhouse runs across the parking lot of an auto service shop, followed by a shirtless man who was later identified as Joseph Rosenbaum. Moments later, shots ring out. And the shirtless man falls to the ground. A figure who appears to be Rittenhouse continues running. Seconds later, he comes back into view, and bystanders arrive to help the victim. Rittenhouse can be seen standing by the body, making a phone call. As more people arrive, he runs away out of frame, and someone seems to be heard saying, "I shot somebody." At 11:49, multiple videos show Rittenhouse running down the street as a pursuer tries to hit him. Rittenhouse is being chased by several people when he appears to stumble and fall to the ground. While on the ground, police say he fires at least 4 shots, striking 2 people. Anthony Huber is shot and lies motionless in the street. Gage Grosskreutz is shot in the arm and appears to be holding a handgun, according to the criminal complaint. Rittenhouse gets up and runs down the street as police arrive at the scene. People in the crowd can be heard yelling. Rittenhouse raises his hands while his rifle hangs around his torso, and a number of police vehicles drive past him. He walks towards a squad car which is parked near the First United Methodist Church. This is the last time we see him on video ABC News obtained. Rittenhouse was not arrested that night in Kenosha.
The last night, a 17-year-old individual from Antioch, Illinois, was involved in the use of...
Police issued an arrest warrant for him the next day, and Kyle Rittenhouse turned himself in Antioch, Illinois. He was arrested on multiple charges, including first-degree intentional homicide. According to police, Rittenhouse said he was in Kenosha to resolve whatever conflict was in place. In an earlier interview, Rittenhouse said he was there to protect businesses and help people. Rittenhouse's lawyer released a 3-page statement, arguing his client feared for his life and was acting in self-defense. The shooting left 2 people dead and another injured. Kyle Rittenhouse pleaded not guilty to charges including first-degree reckless homicide, first-degree intentional homicide, and first-degree recklessly endangering safety. The trial will begin in November 2021, more than a year after his arrest. If convicted, the now 18-year-old faces life in prison.
So I'm going to stop right there because, again, I wanted to prove a point that basically we've had an established history of this. We've had an established history of so-called patriots going out and being terrorists. I see a lot of people right now, oh, let's just call Rittenhouse. He was actually going there to defend businesses. He didn't do what the guy did in Buffalo. He didn't do that. You know, okay. Explain this one.
We are interrupting your regular programming for breaking news in that deadly church shooting in Charleston, South Carolina. We have just learned the suspect, 21-year-old Dylan Roof, has been caught in North Carolina. Attorney General Loretta Lynch confirms he is now in police custody. Police say Roof walked into the historic Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston last night, sat down for nearly an hour at a Bible study there, and then opened fire, killing 9 people, 6 women and 3 men, including the church's pastor, Clementa Pinckney, who is also a prominent state senator. We want to bring in ABC News consultant and former FBI Special Agent Brad Garrett. Brad, we talked earlier this morning. You predicted this was going to be a quick search.
And the reason why, Amy, is that he did everything straightforward, didn't disguise himself. They had great surveillance photographs of him, left a witness alive that could ID him so she could spread the word that he's the shooter. And then he's found a short time later. I guess I'm glad that he was taken into custody. I'm hoping without any violence occurring. But now maybe we'll get a better picture as to what his mindset was.
21 years old, looked as though he wanted to be caught, left a witness behind, those pictures everywhere. How do you think police tracked him all the way to North Carolina?
Well, think about this. They had a tag number, I think in short order before they told us. They knew who he was. You get the word out. So literally law enforcement, city, county, state have his tag number, car description, and ID of him. you could only go down so many roads if you're still in the car. So my guess is they probably did a car stop or surprised him at a particular location.
All right, Brad Garrett with the latest in D.C. We're going to return everyone out of their regular programming, except in the West, where GMA continues. President Obama will be speaking on this topic shortly.
Yes, Dylan Roof, the boy who literally and figuratively went to a church, intentionally sat down with said people, and decided above all else that everyone there had to die. Oh, and let's not forget, police took him to Burger King afterwards because he was hungry. So again, miss me with the bullshit. We've had our Kyle Rittenhouses, we've had our Dylan Roofs, and many others before them in America's history, to which y'all claim it's CRT that doesn't want to be taught. You guys have always the ground has been bred for white domestic terrorism. The fact that you simply didn't want to acknowledge it, name it, or label it doesn't change the fact that it happened. And now it's happened again. We'll see what happens next. But again, I hate to say this, but if little kids dying from gun violence didn't change anything, I fear what will happen, because Black people aren't going to take that anymore. I mean, you can't ask us to, we definitely should not forget. But again, when you're just trying to live your life as a citizen, you have those who believe they're at the top of the food chain, believing in some disparaging old adage, retired theory that their place in the food chain is going to be disturbed. So they believe that killing justifies it. That, my friends, is the blatantest example of domestic terrorism. Because again, the most dangerous terrorist in America is nobody that comes across the borders. It's homegrown. It's white and easily influenced. Prove me wrong. That being said, guys, we're going to move on to our feel-good segment, because usually on the Frack got here, we usually cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom, sometimes make use of humanity. But hey, it's Wednesday, hump day. We're almost close to the weekend. So we do, especially this podcast, we did cover a lot of dark stuff. So we do want to leave you guys out on some good vibes, things of that nature. And I believe I found one to where this woman not only graduated from college, but also gave birth and was determined to have her graduation ceremony. Check it out.
Congratulations, you may now approach the bed and receive your degree.
Jada Micaiah Sales.
For the determination and commitment to excellence you have demonstrated during your academic journey, it is my pleasure to declare you are now officially a graduate of Dillard University. You may now turn your tassel to the left.
Man, congratulations twice. Sorry guys. Still wonderful in my opinion that for so fact the matter that she gave birth. Unfortunately, she did give birth on the day of graduation, so she was not able to attend. But the actual deans were able to come forward and still be able to make her wish come true of being able to walk, so to speak. But at the same time, she was able to walk, and at the same time, her and baby are doing well, which is always a wonderful, grooving thing. So congratulations and mazel tov to the baby, because the baby looks cute. That's just me. But that being said, guys, we are going to wrap it up. So before I get out of here, I got to do some shameless plugging as I usually do. Shout out to RN Geek Present Geek Salad for allowing me to share my podcast on their page. You can definitely find them on YouTube as well as Instagram as well as Facebook under the keywords Geek Salad. So definitely check out those guys. Shout out to Vaughn at Avon Westwood on Facebook, BPZ on all socials, where you can find his podcast as they're showing there. Definitely check those guys out as well. And of course, yours truly, guys, my IG handle is BlackBox447. Definitely check me on Instagram, because I do post a lot of reviews, mostly movies, video games, television, and gym stuff, because I do a couple push-ups. Also, at the same time, guys, I am all about pushing positivity, motivation, because We all need positivity and motivation, especially now more than ever. And I want it to be addictive. I want it to be influential. I want it to be infectious, to be able to pass that along, because I truly do believe that we do need to be nicer. Do need to be nicer and more kinder to each other. You don't know what the next person is going through. Simply just saying hello or being kind can actually change somebody's life, maybe help save it. It takes zero energy to be nice. It takes everything in you to be a dick. So literally, the answer is clear. Also, at the same time, guys, again, COVID is still out there. Please wear a mask when you're in mostly crowded areas. Even though cases are going down, the only way we're going to beat this pandemic is if we all work together and actually protect ourselves, and also give our hospital brothers and sisters who have been working nonstop and crazy, definitely give them a break. That's all I'm saying. Also, guys, before I get here, the tracker that you see at the bottom, let me actually blow it up just a little bit bigger. You can copy and paste that into your browser. We'll take you to my link tree that has the YouTube and Facebook groups for all of my podcasts, How the Frack Got Here, Get Bit, and of course, the Offense Podcast. Definitely like, share, and subscribe, and let people know about it as I try to grow these shows. And again, if you liked what I did, please let me know. If you didn't like what I did, please let me know. I still want to know, because again, unless you're a Fox News person that's just going to argue with me about, this is all left news. Well, again, show me a conservative news station that's going to give me a proper view without the propaganda. You'll be very hard pressed to find that, but hey, good luck. I'm always open to alternative views, as long as they are logical, not crazy. Take it how you will. But before we get out of here, guys, the last thing to say about How the Frack Got Here, it's all about basically informing. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply just giving you all the information to allow you to make up your own mind for yourself, but we are providing a logical point of view to go along with it. We do a lot better as a society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that we should have done back then. Not only electing our first black woman to the Supreme Court, but also electing our first black woman to the Federal Board of Governors. Shout out to Lisa Cook and Johnny Brown Jackson for that. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's why we keep asking ourselves, why does everything still go up by our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians, but still the same old game? And most importantly, how the frack got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Certainly appreciate it. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and we will all get through this. Peace.